Welcome, Maya. Thank you very much for agreeing to do this interview with us. Could you share how your journey in show jumping began and also what inspired you to pursue this sport professionally?
So I don't have a family that's involved in horses, so I don't exactly know how it started. I just know I've always liked horses. My mom must have shown me a horse when I was a little kid, and I just loved it since day one. So I got into it, and I actually started doing eventing when I was a kid.
Oh, you started with eventing. Wow.
Yes. But it didn't last too long. I think I maybe did a year or two and then switched to show jumping because that's what I really preferred.
Can you walk us through your training schedule and also how do you balance personal fitness with preparing your horses for the best performance?
So daily routine would usually, right now I don't have too many horses, so it's quiet, but usually I get up, help a little bit at the barn, and then start riding. I do between 4 and 6 horses a day. So it's enough to keep me entertained, but also have the time to work them properly and do everything they need. And I will usually do flat work with them most of the time. And I also like go on trail rides out in the woods. I jump a little bit at home, but usually not much. I just change things a little bit for the horses to keep it more entertaining for them.
They don't get bored doing always the same thing.
Exactly. And then usually, my fitness, I do part of it with the horses, obviously, because we're working there and like moving. And otherwise, I sometimes go to the gym. I'm going to admit I'm not the greatest with that, but sometimes I will go and try to work a little bit on myself. But it's true that I prioritize the horses.
I've seen that your latest results are with Chacolando P. He looks quite an incredible partner for you. So Can you share a little bit more about what's your process for developing trust and also communication and bond with your horses?
I think a big part of the communication comes from knowing them, knowing their personalities. So I live at my farm and I have my horses at home. So that really allows me to see them anytime I want, see what they like to eat, what they don't like to eat, what they like to do, what they don't enjoy doing. And just being able to know the horse and know their personality helps you create a much stronger bond. And that translates into riding. And I also ride them almost every day. And if I can't ride them, maybe I'll have someone help, but it's probably 95% of the time me. So I feel like that also helps in it's all about getting to know each other and creating a bigger and stronger connection.
Well, it's amazing that you live where they are. So for me, this is just like the dream life. So I'm a bit jealous. And just out of curiosity, what do you think about hand feeding? So you give treats to them or you prefer not to be connected with treats when they see you? Because I've heard different opinions on this. So I'm quite curious on what do you think about it?
I give treats. I give a lot of treats.
You cannot resist. I'm the same.
They look too cute and I feed them. And I know part of why they like me is because I feed them. But I don't really care, so I just keep giving them treats.
Every horse has its own personality. How do you identify their personalities and abilities? Just observing the way they behave, or you have your ways to understand a little bit more about how they feel and about their personality?
It's a lot about, I guess, some body language. Do they enjoy when I go do something as simple as scratch them? Do they like that? Do they prefer having their personal space? Are they spooky about going to the jumps or just working? Pretty much how brave are they, how they interact with each other, because my horses are also usually in the pastures together. Mm-hmm. So you can tell which one's more dominant, and usually that also goes into riding. They'll have a bit more character or they'll just do as told. So there's a lot of ways to get to know them. But it's not a one-day type of thing. It's you get to know them more and more. You get to know them at home. You get to know them while you're hand walking them, while you're riding them, while you're competing. It's just a lengthy process. It's like people. You don't know a person in a week. You don't know a person in a month. And like people, they constantly change and things can just develop. So it's just reading all that body language.
When you're looking for a new horse, so how do you conduct that type of choice? I mean, what do you seek in a horse when you're looking for a new one? For yourself or like a commercial horse? So it's something just about the feeling or specific things that you are looking for?
Obviously, the feeling plays a part in it, but especially for commercial purposes, it's really important that it's like a simple horse, a horse with a good brain, like they say, because even if it's not the next Olympic winner, you're still going to have a horse that many people can ride, and that's like easy enough. And if the horse works with you, you can achieve much more than if you have like a super, super talented horse, but you can't ride it, then there's no point. So just trying to find that good mentality and then working with that and being able to develop the horse and just help them get better.
Is there a specific victory or competition that stands out as especially meaningful for you in your career?
We have something called North American Youth Championships. So it's like the European Championship for young riders, but for North America. So I was, in 2019, we won as Team Mexico, second individually. So those are pretty big championships, and it was a really fun feeling and a really exciting feeling to place that well in it. And just like more recently, I did a 2-star Grand Prix back in summer, in June, and I won that one with a horse that I've been developing since he was 5. So that's also a really special feeling because I've done a few Grand Prix, like 2-star Grand Prix. That was my first win, and that was also like his horse's first 2-star Grand Prix win. So it just makes it special when you've been along the way and you've seen the horse grow into what they become.
And can you share instead where you faced a significant challenge and how you overcame it?
So I was born and raised in Mexico. I stayed there until I was like 18 years old. So obviously I had my life there, my horse there. Basically all of my successes had been there. And then we moved to Florida, to the US, like 3 years ago now. And it was just a bit of a challenge having to start from zero. At that point, I had like mostly young horses. And then my horse to do bigger classes was like a little older. So he was just stepping down. So I had a little while of just building things back up, but I tried to stay positive and happy through it, because the good thing about this sport is you can go on for years and years and years. We forget sometimes that we do have time, unlike sports like gymnastics or figure skating, where it's really like a month can mean so much, but here a month is you can breathe, which is really nice. Yeah, I feel like that's a challenge that many people face when they have horses. We want to do everything so fast, and we forget that we can breathe, we can take things slow. And
we know that this sport requires a high capacity to stay focused under pressure. Do you have a routine, a pre-competition routine to keep yourself centered and grounded and focused before a competition?
I don't have a specific routine. I think I mostly when I'm preparing for a Grand Prix, sometimes they're at night, I'll be with my horses. I'll keep myself busy just so I don't start just thinking about the Grand Prix and what it involves. Thankfully, though, naturally, I'm not a very, very nervous person. Obviously, in certain classes, I do get nervous or a little bit more stressed because of the pressure, or depending which class it is.
Yep.
But normally and naturally, I can stay relaxed. So that's why I don't have any specific routine. But I think just keeping myself busy, and then sometimes while you walk the course, you're like, "Ooh, this is big, this blah, blah, blah." But once I'm on my way with the horse to number one, then usually everything just comes easily, and you don't have time to think about all that anymore.
And how do you see your career evolving in the next years? What are your next goals?
So I'd like to pretty much keep doing competitions, keep either developing horses or doing a little bit of sale horses, keeping one or two that I'm the ones I want to have for competition, and then just bring in a few horses, work them, get them better, develop them, and then do sales.
And do you have any mentors or figures in show jumping who have shaped your journey, like a role model for you? And what have you learned from them?
So back in Mexico, I had my trainer that basically taught me how to ride. So just having good bases in riding, or pretty much in everything in life, is really helpful, because obviously there's always something to learn, always something to work on, but when the basics are good, usually it's a little easier to build on good bases than on wrong ones. And so that helped a lot. And then just from riders, I never really rode with them, but BZ Madden was always a role model because of how easy it looked when she did all the big classes and when she won everything. It was like, that's how I would like to be. So that was a role model, but I never really took a lesson or did anything with her. And now recently I switched trainers a few months ago, and he's also been great. It's just really working on those details, and those, sometimes you get into bad habits and it's just, I know them, and you just have someone remind you that you're doing that. So it's really helpful, and I'm really happy. I ride alone often, like most of the times I ride alone. I know what to do, and I've been doing this for a long time, but you sometimes forget even small things that should be obvious. You forget them because you're just into the work, and just having another pair of eyes on the ground tell you you're doing this wrong or fix this is super helpful.
And does it ever happen that you disagree with your coach?
I try not to disagree. Usually I'll just ask why. If I'm not convinced of something they say, or I feel something completely different from what they're saying, I'll be like, okay, but why? And then they usually explain it, and if it makes sense, perfect, and if not, I just agree to disagree. But usually the people you work with are people who have similar ideas to you, or usually that's how it should go. So right now my trainer pretty much has the same philosophy that I do, and so there's not a lot of things to disagree on.
What about your life beyond the equestrian sport? I mean, do you have any hobbies or interests, or you're too busy for anything else?
So I'm really busy. Well, not even that busy with horses, but it's just what I really like doing. So I do have a few friends, but we hang out, and they also ride horses. So I hang out with my horse friends, and I do a lot of things around the horses, but it's what I like doing. So it's never too much. I don't really get bored of it.
What advice would you give to young riders?
Like I said earlier, we have time. It's really easy to compare ourselves with other people, and especially this being a sport where money plays a big part, sadly, but it's just the truth. You'll always have someone younger and better than you. It's just the way it is. So knowing how to keep pushing even when things are not that easy, or you don't have that much motivation, but you keep working through it, usually it does get better. And being able to enjoy the journey, enjoy the process, and not get stuck on oh, but I could be doing like that other person that's doing better. But we all go at our own pace, and we all do our own things, and it doesn't mean it's better or worse. It's just the way things happen.
What do you think about ethics in this sport? So there are things that you think should change, like for example, using of certain beats or certain aids. What do you think should change if we want to focus on ethics at least as much as we focus in the sport?
So there's definitely some bits and some tools that should not be used, no matter how soft you are with them. I love bits. Obviously love bits. I have a full collection of them. If needed, I will put a bigger bit, but I will always try to make it as comfortable as possible for the horse. I just feel like it's safer to have the correct bit than have a plain snaffle and have to pull so hard, because I feel like that's also not so ethical. And just treating the horses with respect. We forget they're not machines. So a lot of people just want them to perform without really giving back or being nice to the horses. And just I feel like we're missing a lot of horsemanship in general. Like nowadays, it's you just go, you compete, and you're done. But the whole aftercare, the whole getting the horse ready, there's a lot of things that happen backstage that some riders don't really take care of. Which I have grooms, I have help. So obviously they do part of it, but I always try to be present, be there, and just know your horses. Pretty much more than an organization or a federation changing, which I'm sure they could do things to help right now. I don't know exactly what, but I'm sure they could. It comes from like trainers, parents, or people around you to kind of motivate you to be a better horseman, a better horsewoman. I feel like it goes more in that aspect. And there are a lot of good horse people in it, just like in any discipline or in any aspect of life. There's like really amazing people, but sadly there's also people that are not as great. So it's just working towards the well-being of the horse.
We see that more and more top riders are choosing to have their horses barefoot. So what do you think about it? Barefoot or not?
So my horses are barefoot.
Okay.
Yes. Not all of them, but most of them are, and if they're comfortable, I will always go barefoot. Sometimes during the process or they'll be fine for a while and like you maybe get a little sensitive, so then I'll put shoes on. So I've got like I'm not gonna fight someone over them wanting to put shoes on their horses. That's totally up to each individual person. But personally, from my experiences, from what I've read, from what I've seen, I prefer barefoot. But if the horse needs shoes because they're just not comfortable, then they can have shoes.
Is there something else that you would like to share?
Well, I do have. We've been doing a little bit of breeding. So we have a baby. Yeah, we have a baby now and a baby due next year. So I've always also really liked developing young horses. Since I was a kid, I've always done young horses, which I think really helped for later on. It's always nice having, a big horse that's ready to do Grand Prix and do all the big classes, but the joy of building up a horse and seeing the whole journey is really amazing. So that's the thing I really like, developing young horses. Like obviously I want to do the big jumps, and that's not realistic with a young horse, but I like the mix of both. So that's something about me. And then I like my horses to live like horses. That's kind of what I think. So here I'm lucky enough to have a farm that has space, so they go out together. They're in the paddock most of the day. They just come in at night, and seeing them happy and live happy makes me happy. So that's also part of who I am and what I do. It's something I really enjoy. Just seeing them be horses makes me really happy.
You do have also your Grand Prix horses in the paddock together with the other ones, or?
Yes, I usually have my stallion, which is I don't think he counts as a stallion because he's very, very quiet, but he'll go out with my gelding, so they're together. And then I have my mares that are together with the little baby, and I have a donkey, and I have a mini horse. It's
wow.
But yeah, usually they'll always be at least in pairs. So I usually have 2 or more. Sometimes I've had 5 horses together, and they're fine.
Thank you very much. It was a big pleasure speaking with you. Thank you.
It was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you.